quite a lot to tell you about today, and also quite a lot to um, talk about today. It's just about to be 6 o'clock in the morning, so we're about to get some bells ringing. The reason I'm up so early, I've only got half an hour to chat to you this morning, because at 6:30 precisely I have to start long watering my garden. Now, we're in the middle of the most extraordinary heat wave in June, which is very, very troubling indeed. We are now 11 days in, and this heat wave is going to continue to, I think, 2 days after my birthday, which is on July the 1st. So it's pretty horrifying. Yep, if you are not already out there reducing your consumption, not buying anything but essentials, recycling, doing everything you can to reduce the heating of the environment, I would beg you to start now. I know that most of you will be, because you are substackers and you have a social conscience. But what we do in this house is I recycle all the plastic I can, and what I can't recycle goes into a recycle bin. Here in France, everyone has to divide their rubbish. I know in America you probably do too, certainly in blue states, where you divide your rubbish into recyclable and non-recyclable. And we take a further step of dividing our rubbish into what is compostable, because I have a fantastic compost system going here, which is helping to save my garden in the middle of this terrible chaleur, they call it, or heat wave. If I just turn my phone around, you can have a little look and see what's happening to the lawn, but also you can see that the rest of the garden is flourishing, and this is because I'm doing very judicious watering. So let me turn the phone around, and you can see my boy here eating his breakfast. Would you believe these? I planted them in autumn last year, and they are still flourishing. And it's because they have the shade here of our glycine, otherwise known as wisteria, and also because pots get watered every single day. Here I have my raspberries, and you can see they are fruiting, which is very exciting. This gets watered every day, that gets watered every day. Over here, my herb garden gets watered every day. You'll see I've put an umbrella on top of my artichoke, because it's feeling the heat a bit more than the others. And you'll see I've got my potted citruses and a further raspberry behind the heat pump, which also is fruiting. Now let me show you what else is happening here. Come on, guys. Where are my friends? Where are my Substack friends? Okay, have a look here. Now that's what's happening to the lawn. Okay, that was luscious and green 2 days ago now, but yesterday we had the highest heat of the entire heat wave. We had 41 degrees for about 4 hours. Now that's about 104 Fahrenheit, so no fun. So the lawn is suffering, but nothing else is. And what we've got, you can see, if you can see behind the tree and the hose, that hose is the longest hose I could find, and that connects directly to our well, and the well goes down to the aquifer. So I never feel particularly guilty when I'm watering the garden, because first of all, the water comes from the aquifer, and if you read and subscribe to, it's Carita Shaw or Carlita Shaw, I think it's Carita Shaw, try both. She writes on the environment, and she has written an amazing article some time back to say that basically the aquifer will never run out of water. I mean, I'm not sure, I've got to read it again, because a friend of mine who is a water scientist says that's nonsense, so I've got to find it again for him as well as to reassure myself. But she says it's something to do with the way the Earth's crust revolves. Anyway, but the other reason I don't feel any guilt using this, and I'm allowed to use it even in a where there's been a water stoppage, generally by the council because it comes from our private well. I don't water the lawn. Because the lawn is not doing much for biodiversity, but you know what it is? This, the flowers, the water beds. Okay, all my beautiful beds are doing a great deal for the aquifer. Here we are. So that is why I have a little bit of this there. Have a look at that. That's quite fun. I've got sun umbrellas over my hydrangeas. They're actually here, they're called hortensias. Actually, that's a hydrangea and that's a hortensia. And so, as you can see, things are still thriving. My tomatoes here, as well as tomatoes in the garden bed over here. I protect my tender vegetables, basically my non-Mediterranean ones, here with that black and with the umbrella there over the lettuces. And so it means that everything is still thriving. Now, the other thing I do is that I heavily mulch my beds. Every spring, they get a thick coating of compost, which I have made myself. But the other thing that I use is I use wood chips. Actually, I use straw in the veggie patches. You're meant to use it about that thick, 6 inches thick, which I didn't do and I haven't done yet, and I will do after this chaleur. But what it does is it stops the weeds and it also protects the soil from water loss. And then in the rest of the garden, it is bark chips. And actually, they're wood chips. They're wood chips, I think, from chestnut trees. And if you heavily mulch with them, then again, you don't need to water that often. Now, because we've got this extraordinary, very hot heat wave on, I have been watering my garden beds once every 2 days, but normally in summer, you only need to do once every 3 days. And the only thing I do every day is the vegetables and the pots. And that's how you end up with a garden that is thriving. And I have no guilt about this because, we've got friends with this property on a hill with the most exquisite garden that will have burnt out by now. That's because they have no well. But I don't feel guilt or social guilt at all about this, even though my neighbours might be struggling, because I'm keeping a patch of biodiversity flourishing here for the birds and for the insects. Up here, I noticed that yesterday, you can see those little holes in the wall up there. The swifts are still nesting. As in, I think the baby birds are still alive. We'll see this morning if they are, because I can't see. Yes, the swifts are just starting now. And if they're feeding the babies, that's extraordinary. It means it must be very cool in that loft there. Because even our beautiful building here, which is like a fridge in summer, because of the very, very thick stone walls, and we have no aircon, we only use fans if we need a bit of air movement. The only reason we do that is, that's how we keep the house cool. Anyway, what else do I have to say? Yes, Donald Trump, his latest. I cannot believe that idiot is now saying or proposing that blue states be punished for apparently the way they allow illegal immigrants to stay. Yeah, and so they're proposing now to remove clearance, security clearance from which is federal, from their airports in the blue states, so that nothing can fly in or out of the states, and in particular, no tourists. Not that I think you've got many tourists these days, unfortunately, and which is the fault of your dictator in chief. But also, now I'm losing my thread of thought. I'm a little distracted because none of you are visiting at the moment, and I'm not quite sure why. Anyway, I shall natter on. I'll natter on for another 10 minutes. I think that maybe you guys are exhausted and you're asleep. I don't know. Early to bed. Anyway, I'll natter on for a little while longer. Okay, I'll talk about something. I won't talk about Trump at the moment. I will talk about Keir Starmer in Britain. He resigned yesterday. Now, I've always liked Keir Starmer as a person. I think he's a very straight dealer. He's kind. Well, he's okay. He's got a temper, apparently, but wouldn't you if you were Prime Minister of a country? He also managed to get Labour in on a massive majority at the last election, even though that wasn't expected. So, he certainly was very popular at the time he was elected. Mainly, of course, they were defeating an egregiously corrupt Tory government. Charlie, no, puppet. Charlie, go over there. He wants attention. As usual, Charlie, no. Charlie loves coffee. This is hilarious. He can smell my coffee. Charlie, get down. Get down. Anyway, so where am I? Yes, Keir Starmer. But he's made some silly mistakes. And, he's tenacious. He has clung on. He has clung on to leadership against quite a few, not scandals, well, sort of scandals. Okay, so Peter Mandelson, who was the spin doctor for Tony Blair. Hey, here again. Yeah, he was the spin doctor for Tony Blair. He was appointed by Keir Starmer with a wave of the hand to be ambassador to the United States. And it turns out that Peter Mandelson, who I always thought was a slime bag anyway, was besties with Epstein to the extent that, Epstein even had photos of him in his horrible little, we call them budgie smugglers, his betas, like Speedos. It was disgusting. And it turns out that Peter Mandelson, who is now facing very serious charges in Britain, was sharing state secrets of England with America. And of course, Mandelson was telling all his close buddies, but also he was making a lot of money off the back of it. So he was a real rotten egg. Now, Keir Starmer is not a rotten egg, but what happened was that there had been whiffs. Nobody knew about his connection with Epstein. There had been whiffs about Peter Mandelson, but not hugely strong ones. At the time, Keir Starmer waved him through, but he had been warned. He'd been warned by the public service about Mandelson that he was not the right person to send, but he had a backer who was a friend of Starmer's who really pushed and said, look, because he's sleazy, he'll actually be a good ambassador to talk to Trump. How's that? Isn't it lovely that you appoint ambassadors for their sleaziness? So he waved it through, and then it turned out that he was in the Epstein files. Hi. Hello, Blanca. Blanca, you are the very first person. I've been talking now for 13 minutes, and nobody's there except my darling Blanca. Blanca? Bisous, as they say in France. You can send me a kiss or a heart if you want. I'm glad you're here. I'm talking at the moment about, now you may not be that interested, but it's very, very relevant to what's going on with you. Leah, hello, how are you? Very good to see you, because I've been talking for 13 minutes and no one was joining and I was about to come off. Okay, so what's happened in Britain is that Keir Starmer, who's the Prime Minister, resigned yesterday, and I was explaining that, so you have to listen to the bit before you to catch up. But yeah, he had appointed Peter Mandelson as the ambassador to New York because he was sleazy and was therefore likely to get on with Donald Trump. And but it turned out that he was up to his neck in the Epstein files. So that was a big scandal, and he had waved it through, but he didn't know. He knew that Mandelson was sleazy, but he didn't know about the extent of his connection with Epstein. So he managed to survive that scandal. There have been a couple of other ones, nothing major, nothing really going to his integrity. However, he is perceived as being as charismatic as a wet tea cloth. And that, unfortunately, these days is a real problem. So what happened was that he had refused to allow someone called Andy Burnham to stand in, to basically represent the Labour Party in an electorate. He'd refused to allow him to do it because he saw him as a leadership threat. That was a very bad move to do because this man, Andy Burnham, is extremely popular and very well connected with the trade unions, and he has a huge following. Anyway, then another by-election came up, and Andy Burnham, who has stated that he wants to challenge for Prime Minister, he stood again, and this time Keir Starmer said, okay, he's got to stand, and he did. And guess what this guy did, and this is where it's relevant for you. He absolutely thrashed the far right. Now, the far right was leading in that by-election, in that particular district, absolutely leading, and he thrashed the candidate. Everyone wanted him. Now, this is fabulous because now that he's come through, Starmer has resigned. It means that Burnham, without any kind of, ugly dispute within the Labor Party, can be appointed for Prime Minister, and we can win the election again. The Labor Party in the UK can win that election again. I say we because I'm actually entitled to vote in Britain because I'm a British citizen as well as an Australian. Isn't this great? Isn't this absolutely fantastic? So once again, the far right defeated, and that's why it's relevant to you guys. Okay, now what else? I've talked a bit about my garden. Because you guys didn't see my garden before, I'm just going to show you how it's surviving this horrendous heat wave. We are now on day 11 of a stonking great heat wave, and yesterday we had 104 degrees Fahrenheit in this region for 4 hours yesterday, and you can see what it's done to the lawn. I'm going to just take you on a little cruise. These are surviving. My raspberries, these are surviving. You'll have to listen to the beginning to find out why. I tell you how I use the water from our water pump. Okay, now I've only got 10% battery left, so I'm not going to be able to talk for long. And one of the reasons why is I've got to do my deep watering today. So with this heat wave, I've been doing deep watering every 2 days, which means you stand with the hose and you count for a minute on each area that you're hosing. And that has kept everything gorgeously alive and green, except the lawn, which I am not watering. And I'm not watering the lawn because it doesn't mean for biodiversity, but everything else does. The bees, the butterflies, and the birds love this garden, and a lot of other gardens are dying in this heat wave. That's why I don't feel guilty. Also, our water comes straight from the aquifer. You'll see I'm sheltering a rose in a pot with an umbrella. I'm sheltering the lettuces with an umbrella. I've got shelter there. But this is how you survive a heat wave hereabouts. Charlie, no. Charlie loves coffee. No, you are not having my coffee. He is so naughty, that boy. He is so naughty. Now, I've been told my internet connection is unstable. So, you know what? I'm going to continue this chat. I promised to chat until past. So I'm going to attach now. This is our messy hall. Here's my lovely kitchen. Look, isn't it gorgeous? No, we're not alcoholics. A lot of that's olive oil, and it's also, we've had a party recently. Look at my roses. Look at that. I've been picking them from the garden and saving them because they'll just burn in this heat, and I've yet to arrange them in vases. Okay, now, here it is. It's attached here, and we'll still be able to look out to the garden. I've attached it to my computer. Here we are. There. Good. Now we are charging again. I can natter on. 12 more minutes, I'm afraid. The reason why is that I have timed how long it takes to do a deep water of the garden, and it takes exactly an hour and a half, which is a long time, but that means I stand for 1 minute for, what, 100 and... Oh, what's an hour and a half? It's how many minutes? It's 180 minutes. So for, 180 times, and that's how I do it. Look, there's my ancestors there. That's my dad and his second wife. And see that embroidery? That was done by my mum. I did that painting back when I was learning painting in Hong Kong. It's not very good. I love this one. I got this at Greenwich Market in London. And I got these when I was travelling in Portugal. And that was, how many years ago? Almost 40 years ago. And up here, can you see that pig? I call it my prescient pig. Now, the reason I call it my prescient pig is because I bought this in Paris when I was engaged to my ex, would you believe? And my my ex turned out to be toxic, even though I'll never regret the marriage because I've got two beautiful daughters out of it. But my beautiful guy, he was born in Paris and he was born in the year of the pig. So even as I entered into a toxic marriage, my ex was there. He's lovely. My beautiful husband is coming down. Hello, doctor. How are you? Nice to see you. I'm going to show my face. My husband's coming down, so I might have to stop because he doesn't like being on Substack. I might get him to just say a quick hello. Anyway, so yes, I was talking about idiot Trump and the way they want to punish the blue states by closing their airports. It's not going to work. It ain't going to fly. That will go before the courts and it will be shot down immediately. But it just shows that the poor man is becoming desperate. You could hear my husband. Now, what he's doing, he's going up into our loft. What we do to keep this beautiful stone house cool, and you can see the thickness of the walls if I turn around. Very thick walls. But the way you keep these houses cool, even through, it's going to be about, by the time this heat wave's over, it's going to be 2.5 weeks of very severe heat. Thank you, Monadel. Thank you. And you too. And you too. So Philippe's going right up into the loft to open their windows up in the slopey roof. And then he'll come down, every door is open, and what's going to happen is that the air is going to rush, cold air is going to rush into the house, up to the ceiling, and we leave this open until the air starts heating up outside. And then what we do is we close all the shutters, all of them, and we close all the windows. And that way you've got a fridge inside your house. And the only thing you then need is a fan. And that is so much better for the environment and better for your health, frankly. 11%. Philippe's not coming down yet. I can keep chattering. Charlie is being so naughty. You know what he's doing? He's tiptoeing upstairs because Philippe's upstairs. Now, he knows he's not allowed. No, I'm in the south of France. I'm in Périgueux, the Dordogne. It's where Queen Eleanor of Aquitaine reigned, and there's so many English people here. And you know why? The reason there's so many English people here is because the English they owed allegiance to the British crown here for hundreds of years. It was very much this area involved in the 100 Years' War. And so there are chateaux here. Dordogne has, or we call it Dordogne, or we call it Périgord. It has, they say, over 1,000 chateaux. How's that? Come and visit this country. It is glorious. You can see outside there our darling church. It's a Catholic church. I don't go to the services there because it's it feels alien to me there. I do believe in Jesus because of a personal experience I had going through my very bitter divorce. I do believe very much in a creator of all things, and I believe in the soul and the moving on of the soul. But I went to one of the services in the church, and it's kind of a bit peremptory, and I didn't really take to the priest. Okay, my husband's coming down now. I am going to say, darling one, I'm just talking on Substack. I've opened everything. Oh, he's waved. He said, that's fine. Charlie's following Philippe around the house. Yeah, I've got 7 minutes left. So, what else? Where do you guys live? Can you tell me? Can you just type into your comments and just tell me where you live? Because I'd love to know. I'm taking it you're all in the States and you're up late tonight. My darling is going off to walk Charlie. And Charlie gets a long walk first thing in the morning, very, very early before it gets hot, because it's terribly unhealthy for dogs in heat waves. And in fact, they had an article on French radio yesterday that was saying that you've got to be very, very super careful with dogs in heat waves because they don't feel the heat and they don't know how much damage it's doing. So if you play catch with your dog in the garden, they get extremely hot and they can suffer from heat stroke. Oui, je parle français. Blanca. I learned at school back in Tasmania, and I learnt it was my favourite language. I absolutely adored it, so I kind of knew. I think that I was going to end up here in France. I've always loved French culture, and now I love French politics because even though it's a mess, what people do here in a crisis is they go for the centre Leyland. Oh my God, hello, Leyland cats. Everybody, you've got to subscribe to Leyland. He has a very, very interesting Substack. It's very nice to see you. Okay, so yes, politics is a mess in France in the sense that it's all over the place. And yes, the far right is gaining popularity. President Macron's popularity is at an all-time low, which is a shame because I like the man. He is very much a centrist in government. But, you know, as usual, he's kind of perceived as an intellectual, and this doesn't go well with the crowd. I habla no español, Blanca. When I was traveling around Europe, when I was 28, and I was traveling around Europe, and it was so funny because I was trying to speak a bit of the language in every country I went to. So I picked up a little bit of Spanish in Spain, and then I went to a cafe in Portugal, and I asked for some burro on my bread because burro in Spanish, I do believe, means butter. And they looked at me weirdly and they said, "You want a donkey on your bread?" It was so funny. And then I met this absolutely lovely, I was traveling by train and I met this delightful Portuguese, he was a monk, and he started teaching me some Portuguese. I wish I did speak Spanish because it's more or less a universal language. But, you know, it's a Latin language like French. But I'm fairly bilingual now. My only problem is when people speak very fast. They have a problem with, I mean, a lot of people here speak English because it's very much, there are many, many English speaking people here in Perigord. Mantequilla. Is that where you come from, Blanca? What a beautiful name. Mantequilla. I love that. That's romantic. Where in Spain is Mantequilla, Blanca? Is it north, south, east, or west? Where can I find it on a map? Because that's obviously where you hail from. Are you listening, Blanca, from Mantequilla? Or are you in the States? Because if you're listening, then you're going to be very early in the morning like us. It's now 6:27. Anyway, I'd love to hear where the rest of you are from. You're being a bit shy. Oh, Mexico. Duh. Of course. Okay, Mexico. Wow. Wow. You are the first person who's listened to me live from Mexico. So thank you very much indeed. It's lovely to meet you. And I'm delighted that you're on Substack. Do you know, I think the whole world needs to be on Substack because it seems to be the only place where really intelligent conversation goes on and where you can do really deep dives into things. And it's certainly just about the only place where independent journalism goes on. So I now have 15% on my phone, so I can go outside again. Hello. I'm still here. I'm going to take my coffee out. So my husband and my dog have gone off on their walk, so I don't need to worry about my husband's privacy. I wanted to introduce you all to somebody. I love this lady. Look at this. Her name is Beccassine, and she's like me. She's a woman who's loud and opinionated, and she's giggling at the world. Isn't she gorgeous? And she's called Beccassine because she looks exactly like a comic book character in France that my husband used to read when he was little. Now, I got her, and this was other news I had for you, and I'm going to do a post about it today because today's my day off. I have just become a gallerist. I manage a gallery in a little town called Saint-Alzire, which is very close to us here. And Saint-Alzire, it's not even a little town, it's a village, it's a big village. Aha, you're Mexican. I thought you were Blanca, but you speak Espanol. Yeah, aha. So, yes, I wanted to show you something. I am so proud. Look, this is my new second-hand car, and I'm calling her Gertrude, so she's Gertie for short, and she's electric, And she's the first electric car we've ever had. And guess what? She was so cheap. She was under 10,000 euros. Summer! Oh, Summer! Hi! Hi, hi! Oh, Blanca, you're Mexican and English. Lucky you. Lucky you. Uh-huh. Okay, so this little electric car, now christened Gertie, she takes me to my new job in this gallery. Thank you, Summer. And and she's so cute. Now, guess what? The reason she was so cheap was because she has no aircon. So you can imagine what that's like in this heat wave. But actually, do you know, I grew up without aircon in cars. I obviously was born in 1960. And so I remember long drives in Australia for picnics because Mum and Dad were great. You know, they used to love to travel and go on picnics. And we used to have all the windows of the car down. Yes. And it's actually a lot more natural. And you don't get out of the car chilled to the bone. You get out of the car at a good body temperature. And if you have those windows down, it's almost as good as aircon. And for example, yesterday driving home in 41-degree heat, it was pleasant. It was very exactly summer. You wind the windows down. And I've only got 2 windows that wind down on each side, but they basically keep you, you know, it's cool and it's beautiful. So, isn't it exciting? And here is our gas chomper. But the really good thing now is that this little gas guzzler, which again we got secondhand because we never buy new cars, it is, you know, we're going to get an electric secondhand when this one dies. Could be some time in the future. But now we can use this for our little trips and our quick trips, and this one for our long journeys. So it's practical, and it's reducing our electric consumption, and therefore reducing our footprint on the planet. Everything we do these days, we're trying to reduce the footprint on the planet. I'm showing you my garden summer. Unfortunately, the lawn is dying, but that's because I don't water it. Okay, because summer is on, and because my favourite people are on, I am going to hang on. So I've got my lovely friend Blanca, and I've got my lovely friend Summer. I'm winding down because I've got a brain like a sieve. Because Leyland, I'm sorry, because Leyland is there. And who else? Come on. Oh, and Dr. Montadel and Leah B. Because you're all on, I'll go on for 3 more minutes. And then I have to stop. And the reason I have to stop is it takes an hour and a half to water this garden, and you're meant to basically get everything watered before 8 o'clock. Now, you can't see this, but up in the sky there are swifts. Oh gosh, they're beautiful. See if you can see them. They'll come as they get lower and lower. They might even pass right in front of you just here. There they are. Can you hear them? There they are. Isn't that magic? Magic, magic, magic. But they're not going to the nests, so maybe the babies have died. Oh, yesterday would have killed anything. On the other hand, they were kind of doing a feeding frenzy of these babies right up until yesterday morning, and maybe they've all matured enough to get the hell out of the nest and into the air and into the trees. I don't know. I hope so. Listen to the birds, isn't it gorgeous? Wow. So, you know what? I was going to tell you guys all about my new job in the gallery, but I'll do that tomorrow, okay? If you come and visit, I'll tell you about it tomorrow because it's actually very, very exciting. And I have ideas that I'm going to basically, I'll tell you tomorrow. It's very different. Everyone's very surprised by it, but everyone agrees with me it's going to bring punters in. People will come into the gallery who would normally not step into a gallery in their lives. So I will talk to you about that tomorrow. I'm going to go now because I've got to get on with the watering. I love you all. Thank you so much for joining. If you haven't subscribed to me yet, please press the subscribe button, and please can you also like, heart, and do a comment, even if it's like hi Sarah, or enjoyed the chat, or whatever, and restack, because if you do that you raise my algorithm, and at the moment I am nearing 400 subscribers, and I really want to push past 400 today if I can. So anyway, bisous, love to you all, and talk to you again tomorrow. about my art gallery experience. Bye.